VR Chat, the next frontier. These are the experiences from Gunter's universe. His continuing mission? To seek out and connect with VR devs and passionate enthusiasts. To discuss theories, beliefs, and rhetoric of all kind. And to boldly go where no show has ever gone before.
Audience is amazing. Yeah. So many avatars, so many folks.
Yeah, right.
This is going to be a great show
GUNTERS
tonight.
universe.
And the delay.
Yeah, thanks for the stream hype.
Yeah, I wonder how. Hey, stream. Hey, Bob. What's
Or your
going
crowd.
on, dude?
We gotta be proud.
Not too much. Yeah, welcome everybody, and another Tuesday, another fantastic guest.
All right, let's start things off with some easy questions. Just tell us your background. Who is Alex?
So, I'm Alexander Mejia. I'm the founder and creative director of Human Interact. It's a VR company. Hey, what's up? It's a company that I started. At first, I was like, I want to make some really awesome VR titles. I want to make software that's really going to be something that I wanted to play. And I saw virtual reality as essentially the next storytelling medium that, how often are you alive when a new storytelling medium comes along and no one's written the rules yet about what it's supposed to be? There's no man on top that says, hey, you got to make this type of shooter game or this type of, drama movie because this is what millions of audiences are going to buy. Like, the play field is completely open, and so I was like, yeah, I'm gonna do that. So I actually left my job at a AAA game company to go and make VR software, and people kind of looked at me like, Alex, is this really what you're gonna do? This is kind of weird, and I was like, no, trust me, you're gonna like this. And when we got the software finally up and running, and we had the voice system working, and we placed a person right in front of you. And you talk to them, and then they responded intelligently back. That was the moment where I was like, oh my God, the last 2 years of my life have not been a waste.
That's great. Because it takes a lot of faith on you developers getting into VR. Like, friends are saying, are you crazy? You're going to leave a AAA game studio to work on what? Work on something maybe in the DJ2 at the time, now the CV1. So...
Yeah,
takes balls, my friend.
No, well, it takes vision.
Kind of.
I mean, anybody can be. Yeah, anybody can just be like, I'm gonna quit my job. Screw my. If you've got enough money saved up, obviously, and it's like, well, I'm gonna quit my job and just do this for a while. And people do this, but there's not. If you don't have the vision to think about, like, all right, where's the next big thing gonna be? Then maybe you're just on the beach playing guitar for 6 months while you waste away the money that you have saved up and like, oh shit, I need to get another job. And I know guys that do that, and there's nothing wrong with that. But for me, creating stories, creating new things, new ways for people to experience new types of stories has always been something that I've wanted to do for my whole life. And I actually started off in the TV and film business before I got into video games. I picked up an Emmy in 2006, I believe. It's so long ago. It's just like, can't even think, like...
That's over 10 years ago now.
Yeah, I know. And like, for me... well, that was a long time ago. I actually used to do commercials for companies. And so there was this company that was going to compete with Callaway, the big golf titans over... And their putter was called Positive Putter. So they're like, we want an ad campaign. We want to be able to tell people about why our putter is so awesome and why it's going to beat the pants off of these other guys. And so we put together an ad campaign. They started running it. And within a month, they got bought by Callaway. So like, we were kind of pissed off at the time because... Yeah, we were pissed off at the time because it was like, we were expecting 6 months of income from running ads on television. It was like, well, that's gone. And then, you know, when you submit something to the Emmys, you don't find out for 2 years whether or not you've won. So you make something in 2006, yeah, and then you submit it in 2007, and then they don't run the awards until 2008. And this is for the crew Emmys, right? For like the guys that are doing the stuff behind the scenes. So, like, I had already gotten a job at this game company called Volition, and I was like, damn it, I could have used that to like negotiate higher pay, but I didn't know that I had and I mean that I had done Emmy Award-winning work yet, you know?
That's funny. Sure. Cool. And is that the big? How many other game studios have you worked for? Just that one, or?
So I've been at Volition. So it's weird. It's like, how many game studios have you worked for, or how many game studios have you technically worked for? Because THQ has had a troubled past.
So THQ, and so
yeah. So I worked for Deep Silver. Well, I worked for Volition Inc., which was owned by THQ, and then THQ went bankrupt, as you may know if you're into AAA game history. They essentially spent too much money on UDraw, and Saints Row 3 was not enough to save the company, even though it was the most profitable game that we had shipped there. So, unfortunately, the THQ brand got split up, and all the game developers got bought. And so we got bought by a company called Koch Media, and they flew games under the Deep Silver brand. And so I worked for them as well. Even though I was in the same building, it was like a completely different experience when I worked for them, because it was just new owners, new ways of doing business, new ways of advertising. And so over there, I wore a lot of hats. I not only did I make game assets, but I also made trailers. I also was like a video tech artist there. So like anything video related. Oops, I'm
like cutscenes and
anything
stuff?
video. Yeah, so like cutscenes, anything where we would do pre-rendered bank video, because we use those a lot to mask up loading scenes. Even when it's just like, hey, what's a TV station broadcast going to look like, right? Like there's just all kinds of things that you pull in when you're making a video game, especially an open world video game like Saints Row. So the two major titles that I actually worked on while I was there was Saints Row and Red Faction. So I worked on Saints Row 2, 3, 4, and Gat Out of Hell. So and like, you know, you got to be careful, because if you say 5, all the Saints Row fans go, "Ah!" Because like, you know, they're waiting for Saints Row 5, and like I said that once accidentally on stream, like, oh, it exists, you called it, and, you know, it's like that there are Half-Life 3. And I was like, guys, I'm talking about Saints Row Gat, you know, like, because that's what we were calling it at the time. It's like, oh, 5, well, what is it, Gat, right? And so I also worked on Red Faction Guerrilla, Red Faction Armageddon, and that was also another interesting series, because it was a science fiction kind of like you're in space on Mars. It's been colonized, but you're leading an uprising, you know, to throw the evil oppressors off the planet. And then the last Red Faction game just kind of went off the rails, and I'm just like, hey, guess what? Aliens! And then, you know, like we're like, okay, let's do that. So it's been kind of a weird, bumpy ride just being in the AAA game business, because you're always at the whims of what the market wants. And, you know, there are things that you think that you want to do, but, you know, at the end of the day, that studio that I worked at, it cost about $1 million a month to keep up and running. So, like, if you're not making game as fast as possible, you're burning a lot of cash.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like a completely different world in the VR space, because it's so small. But at the same token, everybody here who's used any game development tool knows that what you can do now is incredible from what you were able to do just 5 years ago.
Unity, Unreal.
Yeah, Unity, Unreal have changed the landscape for game development in a way that wasn't even imaginable 5 years ago. So when I spoke at GDC in 2012, it was all AAA game developers and a couple of these guys from mobile coming in, you know, from Asia. And those are like the types of people that you saw. And then just this year when I went to GDC, it was crazy how many indies there were there. it's like the entire industry changed just within the matter of a couple of years. And I don't see that slowing down at all, because if you're really awesome or you have a really cool game idea, it's easy for you to team up with a programmer or with a graphic person or a designer and just produce that idea.
Yeah, it's pretty fantastic. We didn't see a lot of indie stuff 10 years ago, right? This is something it's kind of popped up.
I think that there were gatekeepers like THQ and those guys that basically got a say in what games got out there. I mean, 10 years ago, we're like, okay, Steam, you couldn't sell games on Steam as an indie. And now they've got this crazy
it's probably majority of them
system. Yeah, right? Like, you look at like the amount of games released on Steam just in the last 12 months is more than all the games released from like the first, 7 or 8 years of Steam.
And tons of early access and all this stuff. Steam's really blown up and really makes... We live on Steam. I can't imagine what level Steam some of these people are. Level 50, level 100, have 6,000 games. It's incredible. All right, let's get to contemporary times. 2016, you start Human Interact. Am I correct?
Yeah.
So what's up with that? Why'd you do that?
So, I saw the roller coaster demo on the DK1 in like 2014.
Boone's demo.
Yeah. And so I'm just like sitting there and I'm like, holy, can we swear on there?
You can do whatever you want.
All right. I'm just holy shit. My stomach moved. What is happening? This is amazing.
Hear your breath, Brian. Sorry. Yeah, I know.
And
the reaction videos are incredible.
Well, I didn't even see the reaction videos. We just had a DK1 in the studio, and they're like, "Hey, take a look at the roller coaster demo. It's cool." And I did it, and like immediately the sparks went off in my brain. Like, okay, there's a lot of cool stuff we can do here. And I talked to the programmer, and he's like, "Yeah, it's nothing but a fad. It's just a fad again." And I was like, "How can you say that? How can you say that?" So like, I was talking to a lot of people, at my company, and they're like, Oculus was trying to get AAA game studios to make games, at least at that point. So they were sending them hardware. They're just like, hey, you're a developer, take a look at this. And, I got the spark in my mind that I wanted to do it. But, we tried to do some VR stuff in Saints Row, and we had a version of VR for Saints Row 4 that we released like an unofficial Oculus patch for it. And you're running 1,000,000 miles an hour, first person. And then you jump 15 stories in the air, and you're like, "Whoa, my God!" It's like the most intense experience thing ever. And so they were like, "Okay, well, we're not going to make a VR game based off what we're doing. We're not going to turn our game into a VR game because it's too intense, it's too scary, it's too much." And then like that was it. All the VR development just stopped at our studio. So I was like, "Well, I need to get into this," because I think it was Oculus Connect 2015. John Carmack comes out, and he's like, anybody who makes an interesting VR title or something unique will get recognized, it will get noticed, because we are starving for software right now. And when I heard that call, I just like immediately just dropped everything that I was doing at home. I was like, all right, no more Netflix, no more movies, stop playing the video games. I need to get involved in a VR project right now. And so I got into the Oculus Game Jam 2015. I just found somebody. I was like, I just want to get in a project. And I met one of my co-founders there. His name is Adam Nidal. He's one of our artists and tech artists from Sweden. Kid is amazing. Like, all of our art is done by him. All of our 3D models, all of our texturing, all the stuff is done by this one guy. And I was just like, hey, man, you want a job in AAA? And he's like, why would I want to do that? I can just make my own stuff with you. and so, we actually were finalists on the Game Jam for a piece of software called Crime Watch, where we were just like, we're going to make an open world game, and it's going to have this voice talking in it. And like, it was just way too much scope. We realized that like we had like that young indie moment where it's like, we're going to do everything. It's going to be everything for everyone. And then you go and you make it like, how do we do this again? Shit. You know? So we reformulated, and that's how Starship Commander came about, because we realized that we wanted to have a high-end VR piece of software. We wanted it to be able to be played without a controller, because we knew that controllers would not necessarily be available for everybody. And two, when we were testing it with a lot of people, I mean, these things, they have buttons on them, right? But you don't see the buttons. You just see like whatever your hands are, or whatever it is. So like we wanted to make the most natural input that we could for a piece of software that was possible. And everybody forgets that these things, they have microphones on them. I mean, you guys don't forget because you're doing social VR.
Right,
but all of these headsets have microphones on them. And we were like, okay, we know that these have microphones on them. What are we going to do? Well, it was obvious in the context of a story. It's like, why don't you just talk to people? How hard could it be? So we started spending a year developing our own speech-to-text, developing our own text parser, doing all this stuff. And then we realized, like the silly little indies that we were, that like, oh my God, this is way harder than anybody ever told us.
Yeah.
We were just like, well, Google can do it. Why can't we do it? So that's when we started looking around for cloud software, basically. Do speech to text in the cloud, do intent processing in the cloud.
Well, let's hold up there. Let's watch the trailer, and then we have some stuff to talk about Microsoft and get into some of the specifics. But let's let people see how beautiful this game is. Right. Hold on to your butt. And turn up your system button.
You don't know the truth. About what?
I'm Sergeant Sarah Pearson. I've been assigned to your wing today. Your mission is to transport classified cargo to the Delta System Forward Outpost.
This is awesome.
Well, the XR-71 is quite an engineering marvel. It's the most advanced ship in Peace's arsenal.
Computer, punch it.
Commander, it's your call.
Take him out.
Commander, it's your call.
Engage the fighters. Shoot back.
On my way.
Are you taking me to the Delta outpost, or am I going to kill you?
How can I trust you?
Over my dead body. I'd like to see you try. Woo!
All right,
Nice.
So yeah, that's our game, Starship Commander, and the reason why I just love the little alpaca right there, just going crazy. Go for it, dude! Oh damn! So yeah, that was the trailer that we put together, and basically like around Christmas time, we found out that Microsoft wanted to do like a big launch with the voice system. So I'll back up. We had demos of this that we actually showed a year before that we were showing behind closed doors while we were seeking funding. And
K-Dog and I were two of those people.
Yeah. So yeah, you can. Did you get to try it before we did the cloud processing?
We tried it at SVVR last year.
Okay, I think we had just
so
switched to the cloud. No, we hadn't switched to it just yet. It was right before we switched to it.
I remember you were talking about like different APIs that you were trying out.
Mm-hmm. But so when we were demoing it, is like we had the demo content there. We had built a vertical slice. So a vertical slice in the video game business is like, hey, what's like 5 or 10 minutes of gameplay built to what you think final quality is going to be. And it's never always the final quality. It's always like what you can do with the resources that you have. But at least that way, when someone plays it, they go, okay, yeah, I get it. This is what you're trying to build. And then you say, okay, now imagine that, but much longer into a full game. And so when you guys demoed it off, we were not using cloud services yet, and that was like the big feedback that we had. Is like, Alex, this game looks great. Alexander, the music is awesome. Your graphics are great for this. Like, it's all tight. Like, we love how you're telling the story, but you got to get the voice accuracy up. Because I would say that best case scenario, only 7 out of 10 things you would say. So 70% of the time, if you said, that release the engine lock, it would do it. Or if you ask somebody like, who are you? It would work. And when you have those moments and when it worked, it was amazing. I loved it. It was awesome. But when you didn't have it working, it was the most frustrating thing in the world. So we knew that the content was good, the concept was good. We just had to get the accuracy up, and that was the best that we could get it. Using our own tools. So we had just switched over to something that Microsoft had created, and it was called Custom Speech System. Yeah, Custom Speech Service. And so we flipped over to it, and immediately, we went from 7 out of 10 to 900 out of I'd say 900, 94 point something percent. You would say something and it would work. And that was just us just hooking it up. We hadn't even tweaked it yet. And so once we had that up and working, we contacted Microsoft for hey, look at this really cool thing we're doing with your software, because we were trying to, fix a bug. We're like, hey, could you help us fix this bug that we've run into, right? Because you're using other people's software, things happen. And we talked to the dev team. Super cool guys at Microsoft, by the way. Anybody who's like, man, Microsoft sucks, they are turning that ship around. That ship is huge. That ship is hard to turn, but give them some time, because they're doing some amazing stuff in the cloud space. And we talked to their development team. No, they haven't paid us a single thing. We have not received a single dollar from Microsoft as of today. This is 6/20/2017.
Does that mean we
we were like, well, yeah, it would be right if we received some dollars, that we could get moving faster. But we have not received a single dollar, right? So I'll just state that up front, that these are my opinions of the software, of what I've been able to use. And I've used other people's cloud stuff, right? It's not like Microsoft has the only speech to text. It's not like they have the only intent system. But when you combine all their stuff together, it allows you to achieve that, right? It allows you to achieve Starship Commander. So we showed it to them, and they were just like, oh my God, you have to show so-and-so at the company. And so we're emailing around. And then eventually they come to us and they said hey, how would you like to, maybe we just do a case study on you? And I was like, well, what's a case study entail? And they go, well, we'll just write something on the website for you, right? We'll just print it up, and your picture of your game will be there. We're like, okay, yeah, sure. That's a free marketing, right? Let's do that.
Advertising.
Yeah.
And
Microsoft. Nice.
And then they play the demo, and then more of the marketing people start playing it, and then they come back and they go, Alexander, would it be possible if we filmed you talking about this? and so I was like, okay, yeah, I'm not going to say no, right? Let's do this.
Where's this leading, right?
And so we go over and we go to San Francisco. They fly us out. Me and Sophie, business, she's now the chief operating officer, but she was business development at the time. We both do this video. We talk about how great, Custom Speech and Lewis are. And before we know it, a couple days before build, they're like, hey, yeah, is it okay if we put your video on stage? And we're just like we're freaking out here, because it's we're gonna get a lot of press off this, and we didn't even know it was gonna go live. They just asked. They said, hey, would it be okay if we did this? And we're ready to get on the plane, because we're hopping to Los Angeles, because we're showing the demo off to people. We're closing up our seed fund round fundraise, and the plane's delayed. And so I was like, well, let's turn on build, because their thing was 2.5 hours long. And we turn it on, and that guy's like, here, the indie developer Human Interact is making. We're like, wait, what? So we kind of knew that they asked us, but we didn't know if they were actually going to do it, because they're super tight-lipped over there about that stuff. super
Sure.
tight-lipped. So after that video went off, our phones started blowing up. Like all these people that basically like said like, "Hey, no, we're not going to look at this. You guys are too indie." All of a sudden, they were calling us back.
Mm-hmm.
And the funny thing is, the product had never changed. Like the product had always been, you know, what it was. This cool little sci-fi thing that you play, that you talk to characters and they respond back to you. And all of a sudden, it's like people started caring because Microsoft put it up on stage. It's weird how like those things work. It's like, hey, we've been here the whole time, guys.
Sounds like a Silicon Valley episode that I recently watched. But I'm sure that's just how it goes.
It's real.
So
No,
we
it's
can
real,
actually
man.
watch this. Yeah. Oh, yeah. We can see this video. It's amazing. This is how it went down.
Good morning. At Microsoft, we believe AI is about amplifying human ingenuity. This is our vision for AI at Microsoft. You have heard all about the power of the cloud. Let me tell you about some of the innovations we have been driving.
Yeah, cloud hype.
6 months ago, we became the first to reach human parity in speech recognition. While the research is inspiring, what's more exciting to me is what you can do with these exciting technologies. Let's take a look at how an indie game developer, Human Interact, is applying these custom services. Let's roll the video.
And then like our hearts just like stopped when we saw that.
How often are you alive when the dawn of a new medium comes out? Starship Commander is a choose-your-own-adventure VR narrative that uses natural language processing, so you can actually have a real conversation with the characters.
What's my mission?
It must be something pretty important.
We're a science fiction game. We come up with new words. No off-the-shelf software could let us put in custom words.
Who are the Eknians?
We started using Microsoft Cognitive Services to power the backend. Once we plugged custom speech service into Starship Commander, I had tears in my eyes when I was playing it because it's like, oh my god, this is it. This is the experience we want.
Open the hatch.
You can essentially put your script in there and it knows, oh, these are the ways that people are going to talk. And these are the phrases that they're going to say. And then the second thing was the intent detection. With Lewis, you basically give it a couple statements. You crunch it, you start typing in your own statements, and it's shockingly scary how good it picks up even stuff that you didn't put in there. There's a wide open playing field. No one's written the rules yet. I've never seen an opportunity like this.
Wow. Isn't that fantastic?
Yeah, I know.
That was awesome.
I couldn't even understand some of those names and terms in the video game.
So I'm
But
thinking,
cognitive
like,
services
how do I know
can.
I'm really talking to Alex and that you're not just some speech recognition and natural learning? I'm starting to...
So that's actually a funny thing that we talked about. Like, we were kind of spitballing where this technology would go. Like, right, we're making a video game because it makes sense. The scope is low. The domain of words that it needs to understand is low. You know, the fact that people will want to use this in a way that like they're going to want to role play with it makes sense. But you know, I envision this future where you're going to basically be able to create your own AI to do things. And so I could create an AI of myself because it's going to know all the things that I've spoken, right? It's going to be able to analyze my speech patterns. It's going to be able to analyze my email. It's going to be able to analyze the way that I write. And imagine being able to sick an AI on smaller tasks that you don't necessarily need to do. Like, the ability for us humans to be more productive is going to increase tenfold in a way that like we're not even prepared to like deal with.
Yeah.
You know, what's going to happen when your AI starts showing up to your job or doing some work for you, or someone's like, hey, am I talking to you or am I talking to the AI? Like, how do you know that you're actually going to be talking to a real person? And then think about this. What happens if that AI and you are jumping in and out just like you jump in and out of text messaging? Like, people do that all the time. and people are going to jump in and out of like these conversations, right? Where it's just like,
wow, it's so weird.
Oh, and it's going to bring you up to speed with like, oh, here's this thing because I want to be in this conversation in this moment right now. So our future is going to be way different. And this stuff is not science fiction. It's not 10 years from now. Like this stuff is happening right now. And so the ability for us to program this AI up here to handle what we're doing in Starship Commander, like this is like text basic on like your trash 80, you know? Sorry, trash 80. There's like a computer from the 80s, like this really old thing they could do basic.
I know
like,
that.
It's how people used to make games and do computing. And now like think about what we have with Visual Studio and how we can program stuff. Like so the tools are going to get better and better. They're going to get easier and easier to use. And the types of software that exists in the future, we're going to create new categories of software with artificial intelligence that we never even expected were possible. And so this future, you can make it for good, or you guys can make it for awesome. Like, what are you guys going to make it for?
Not evil, right? Not evil.
It's for good or for awesome. There you go.
For good or for awesome, really like that.
So I'm kind of like surprised with that. I haven't really seen a whole lot of other games or VR for VR or just even regular for desktop that use speech as an input. Do you think that's due to like the APIs for voice recognition just haven't been up to snuff until now? Or I mean, because another question is like how many different APIs have you tried since you first started working on your game?
Whoops, I was walking. Sorry, I was hitting the button there.
It's obviously super adorable and attracting lots of attention, but let's
So the reason why I think we're the only people using speech is you have to like know me as a person. I'm actually like kind of crazy for doing this whole thing. Most people would just be like, I'm happy with my job. I go home, I play my game, I watch YouTube, I watch Netflix, and then they're happy with that. Like for me, I always wanted to do something that nobody else has ever done. And when I saw this opportunity with VR, I saw it with AI. It was just like, okay, yeah, I got to do this. Like this is something that has to happen. And so like for me, I get up like every morning at 7:30 and then like I immediately like jump into work. And I work for like a couple hours and then like I like work out like every day. Like this is for me to keep my sanity and keep the stamina to basically just like run all day. And so like you would think like, okay, yeah, sure he works out, whatever, he does this stuff, but it's like it's such a difference it makes in your life when you're trying
critical,
to
right? When you want to be that efficient and productive, it's VR. It's now I have to, right? You have to.
Yeah, exactly. There's a time limit on doing all this stuff because if I don't get this out here and if I don't do it in a way that's meaningful and good, my fear is that someone else will do it in a way that's meaningful or good, which would be all right. But I think even worse, someone else would do it in a way that would be not meaningful and bad. And if they go and they do that and they like poison the well and everybody's like, okay, now voice-based VR games are dumb, that's done for, that tanks your ability to, make these things. Because, right, people are always going to be judged by like the first one that comes out. Like that happened to VR, right? VR tanked in the early 90s because it wasn't good. That's the reality. VR in the early 90s wasn't good. Sure. And so like when I was using it, I was like, oh, really? That thing that's coming back? Yeah. And so I think the biggest hurdle that we have to overcome is the fact that when we talk about speech detection, text to speech used to be really bad up until like maybe 3 or 4 years ago. And it's only been like really productized for people in maybe like the last 6 to 10 months in a way that's like, okay, now you can plug into our speech to text. It's really good. And so like our biggest marketing hurdle that we have for Starship Commander is convincing people that no, like, like this ain't your grandpa's speech to text. Like you have to like convince them that that natural language processing is something that's brand new, that it's totally different. It's like we're jumping from like a text adventure Zork from the 80s to like Yeah, I know. I love Zork too, right? I grew up, I cut my teeth on that stuff. But now it's like we're jumping into like the modern Telltale adventure game, with its graphics and story and everything. So like the first reaction that we got when we showed this trailer off to everybody was, that's impossible. It's not going to work. It's voice commands. You're going to say like the same 3 things over and over, and it's not going to do. And then they post that one video about like the Scottish guy that's trapped in the elevator. Right? Everybody knows I'm talking about. Yeah, this guy knows. He knows.
I don't know.
He knows.
Somebody must know. We have some Scottish friend here, I think. Ewan.
So
they're all muted right now. I yelled
but that's okay, right? Like, these are things that I'm willing to overcome because I think the product that we're making, the game that we're making, the story that we're attempting to tell is going to be so different. Like, people are comparing it to like, well, it's like a movie, but it doesn't have like a linear A to B story. It's like a video game, but it doesn't have like RPG level up bars and have like a 16-button controller. And so we're making something that is a new category of software that's going to be really accessible to people, because if you don't need the controllers and you don't need to know how to play, because all of you who speak English as your first language, you've been doing this.
What about those who can't speak? We have a few people on VR chat that can't speak.
Unfortunately, the product that we're making will not work for them. But
you won't have text
for everybody
input as an option.
We will not initially ship text input as an option. It's something that's possible. I'm not ruling it out, but it's definitely not going to be there at launch. And here's a good reason why. We actually used to test by just inputting text into the game, because speech to text was not very good. And what we found out is we would design the game for us typing in. And once we got the speech to text up and running and working, all of a sudden, all the things that you said and reacted and did were completely different than what you type. So it's a completely different mental model from when you speak out loud versus what you write on the keyboard. So those are things that we have to be aware of. So I agree that
good question.
Speech to text, having text in there is a valid input, but we're going to need
to ask that. So
no, it's okay. I think it's valid to have some level of text input, but we're going to need to have also, a way to make sure that we can design for that, because we're trying to make sure that the game flows well, that you have a good experience with it, because you have to remember.
And then text is an accessibility sort of.
It's hard to do it all.
Yeah, and don't worry, we actually care a lot about accessibility. On the flip side of things, for accessibility, what you're talking about, I would like to add that if you are visually impaired,
like
you can still play our game.
Yeah,
we can still play our game.
About that at SVVR, because we're both legally blind, and so the game that you're working on is perfect for us.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's win some, lose some. Some games are for some people, some games are for other people. I wish we would say, text input is something that we would support out the gate, but it's just something that I'm not
so many resources
comfortable committing to, just because I don't think it would be a good experience.
What about HoloLens, right, Bob?
Yeah, well, it wasn't not necessarily HoloLens. Like, I wasn't exactly sure like how like tight you were with Microsoft, and I know that they've got Windows holographic platform that's going to be having VR headsets from like Acer and Dell and HP and all those companies that are going to be released later this year. So do you think that you'd try to release on that platform as well, like being close to Microsoft, or you're not sure yet?
What can I say about this?
You tell us.
NDA? Those are exciting. Those are exciting platforms. It's always great to see more places that you could potentially play our game. Right now, we have announced Steam VR and Oculus VR. So that means the Vive and the Rift are 2 platforms that we're definitely going to support. When it comes forward in the future with these new ones, as we all learn about these platforms, we will definitely, announce if it makes sense. Like if it makes sense for us to ship on a platform and we have the time and resources to do it, we'll announce, hey, we're shipping on this platform.
I just didn't know like how tightly integrated their cognitive services stuff was integrated with the Windows holographic platform at all.
Oh, so cognitive services is an API that you can go and download and plug into any of your software. You can run it on Linux, run on Mac OS. Like it doesn't need to run on Windows. So they have a REST API that you can hook into, and you can send your speech data to it and start doing processing that way. In fact, they were like surprised. They're like, "Wait, you're using it in what? You're doing it in what?" Like they I think when they built this thing, like when they demoed it off at Build last year, not this year but last year, they were like, "Look, you can order a pizza. I'm talking to the chatbot and ordering a pizza," and we're just like, yeah. And we were like, screw that. We're gonna play games with this thing. We're gonna tell a story that allows you to talk to people. And I just like, for me, it felt obvious. It's like speech to text, intent. Okay, yeah, cool. We can do virtual NPCs that you can talk to. And when Microsoft saw it, they were just like, nobody's doing this. Like, how did you do this? This is our software. What did you add to it?
So hardware side.
Go ahead.
Or do you have another hardware? I was going to talk about story and all that, but do we have any more hardware or?
Well, I sort of kind of like on the lines we were just talking about. Like a lot of people have been using voice attack for the last year or two for controlling their ships in Elite Dangerous with voice. So have you tried that or heard about it? Because it's like the only other game in VR that I know of that people have used for text to speech. But that's just like a third party add-on to like you set it up so that you say a command and it you use it to replace keyboard shortcuts.
Yep, and I've used that, and it does enhance the experience. But I think it's just commands, right? Have you tried that?
So yeah, we've actually looked at that. We got a lot of comparisons to that, obviously, right? Because we're a space shooter game, or people think we're a space shooter game, right? Like, but the idea is it's more of like on par with what the Telltale games are. Space. Yeah, right. Like the theme is the same, but like the actual gameplay is like completely different. So, for them, they have an awesome game where you grab on your joystick and you spin around, for 5 minutes at a time, and that's cool. There's no reason why those games shouldn't exist. We love those games. We like playing those. I played Wing Commander all the freaking time as a kid. I used to love those games. But at the same token, they require a certain level of dexterity. They have a certain amount of tolerance that you have, for comfort. And it's just something that I would only personally play for like 20 to 40 minutes at a time and put it away. And so I wanted to have something that's going to be a longer term experience, something that's about the length of a movie, where you can talk to the other characters. What does a situation in space like that look like? So it's going to be a lot more like a drama, but it's still going to have moments of action, right? Like you're still going to zoom through space. You're still going to be able to blow stuff up. I mean, you got a ship with guns on it. Like we can't do that and not let you blow things up. But the game is really going to focus on your interaction with the characters and who can you trust. Because the characters, they're going to say here's my facade of who I am and who I should be, and please trust me. And then there's going to be other characters. And then when you dig in and you talk to them, you start to realize that these characters have a deep backstory, that they have a meaningful relationship with each other. And as you learn about these things, it changes the story. Hey, what's up?
Yeah, welcome.
So I'm not afraid about other games having, air quotes, voice commands, right?
Right.
Sure.
I'm not worried about that because the level that we're doing things at is a full conversation. So like we actually have to train people. This is really funny. When we show the game off, we actually have to train people and say, don't like issue commands to it, like talk to the person.
Talk to it.
And so like when we demo it off, we actually do it ourselves. Where we say like, here, watch me play the game first. And I go, to Sergeant Pearson, who's the wingman in the story, and I'm like, "Hey, how you doing, Sergeant Pearson?" And she talks, and then she asks about like, "Hey, what are you seeing?" I'm like, "Well, this ship is big and metal and blue." And then she starts talking about the ship, and it's like, "Is there anything you want to know?" And I'm like, "Yeah, so how old are you anyway?" And then she gets all into it. She's like, "Ooh, we're getting personal here." I'm 32 years old. I've been flying since I was 17. So like, the cool thing is you get to learn about the characters in a way that's natural. So like, think about this: when you play an adventure game, a modern adventure game, you have 4 face buttons to push, and they're usually not even what you're saying. They're just like emotions. It's like happy, mad, inquisitive, punch him in the face or something, right? Like, and
sure.
When you're able to do things in VR, I think what makes stuff powerful in VR is you being able to interject yourself as the gameplay, right? So like these motion control games like Robo Recall that we played last week on our stream, like you could play all crazy, you can do like gun kata, or you can play really conservative and play with your arms like this, like, or you can do gestures and motions and rip the robots apart. Like, you get to add yourself to the gameplay. You get to do things that like aren't necessarily there, like throwing the guns off the robot and catching them in midair and shooting again, right? And so that's what makes VR amazing and interesting, is the fact that you get to do stuff that's completely you. And so in a storytelling aspect where you talk to people, you can be cocky and fun, you can play it straight-laced, you can be timid and shy, you get to interject whoever you want to be into that story. And because we have an AI on the other end, knowing your intent of your phrase, the characters on the other end will always play back the correct line. And like that's what's amazing to it.
Sarcasm.
I'm glad you asked that. So we actually deal with trolls. We thought that people would troll the game really hard, like telling the characters to fuck off and all this stuff. And so we actually design elements around it for people, like, as they do it. And we do actually a lot of play testing to see how people play the game. And you'd be surprised. Like, we always thought that the script would just be like super wide and expansive, and that all this stuff, we were going to have to plan for all of it. And we released a demo, and we record. There's like 50 things that you can say to the wingman at the very beginning, and we found out that most people only say like 4 to 5 things. So like we overscoped ourselves, but we're still going to record those lines and leave them in there, because I think through multiple playthroughs, and as people find out like, hey, what are all the things that you can say to the characters that they respond to, it's going to create a lot of fun moments for Easter eggs, or for like, oh, I didn't know that about the story. Because what we want at the end of the day is that when you play the game, and then when you play the game, and then you get together at that water cooler moment, you're like, well, in my game, I was really close with Sergeant Pearson, and we flew off and did this mission. It's like, what? That didn't happen in mine. I pissed her off within the first 5 minutes, and things were hell for me the whole time. So I really like the fact that because you're going to interject yourself into the story, you're going to be able to get different types of stories than what you're used to getting in Hollywood. Hollywood movies, I mean, everybody's seen this. There's like that poster on the wall where it's like, look at all the rom-coms. They all have the white background with like the guy and the girl on it, and like some minor characters in the background. Or it's the gritty, drama movie with like the guy from the back, and you can see him holding the gun down or whatever, right? Like he's doing that pose where he's just like looking down like that. And the thing is that they do that with the movie posters, because the movies are the same thing. Because that's the way to get the most butts in seats. It's the way to get the most money. But with VR, it's going to be so different. We're going to be able to tell different stories because, and don't get me wrong, those stories in Hollywood are awesome. I love them. I just started watching movies like after I, quit my job at Volition just earlier this year to focus on this full time. It's like, finally I can watch movies again. I have time. I love those movies, but at the same token, people are clamoring for different stories. And you see that in the indie space for video games. You see that in the indie space for movies. And maybe it's not a mass audience, but we think we have a product that can attract a mass audience, but still have elements of those story on the side so that more people can really like it, right? Because in the Hollywood model, you have linear A to B. The story it's the same every time. It's like, all right, how do we make this story in a way that gets us the most dollars? But in VR, that's not how storytelling works. Storytelling is like this big branching thing with different branching narratives. So for us to maximize profit, it's a very businessy and kind of dirty word to say, but like for us to make the best game possible, those branches should be as wide and as expansive as possible so that we can hit as many customers and say, wow, look at all these cool stories that I was able to live out in your world. I think that in 5 to 10 years, I see us, as AI expands, as the tools get better, as we're able to develop these things quicker, I have a feeling that like this idea of like, hey, here's a story that we created. Like you saw the trailer, like you're taking this thing to the Delta system, you run into trouble and, you can negotiate your way out of it or fight or whatever. I think like this idea of like this directed story is going to kind of go by the wayside. And instead, we're going to have these AI characters that you live with every day. And it's going to be kind of like the MMO version where it's like, or maybe it's like Friends or like Seinfeld. It's just like, you're walking into and like, like you're having a good time with those characters. And it's something that you can do every day. And the stories that you create.
Log in, you play just to interact with these characters, not just progress.
Like maybe not necessarily that you're going on an epic story. Maybe it's just because you're just hanging out with these characters that you really like.
Interesting.
And so I think
Gunter,
instead in the future.
With a quick question.
Yeah. What's up?
Whenever you get a moment. So we had a kind of a private discussion on the issues of accessibility, and I know obviously there's something. It's not something you can promise outright, but we were curious. There's a person named Nomic, who a lot of people know here, who uses kind of an interesting method of what she calls speech to text to speech, where she actually feeds text through her Vive mic out to us. So theoretically, if you could do text to speech and feed the speech into the microphone just the same way you would talk, would that allow you to play the game, since you're essentially just speaking to it? Or do you see difficulty?
So technically, yes, that would work if you could feed a microphone. I would love to talk to a person like that to see if they would have a similar experience. If that would even be useful, right? Because they're still like typing it out and their ideas, but maybe it's different for those people, just because their ability to communicate their ideas, like when you have any sort of disability like that. I know that people who are hard of hearing or hard of seeing will pick up, better skills in other areas to make up for that. So for that person, they may find that that's actually a really natural way to communicate because they're used to that.
Sarah is pointing out that she is one of them.
Oh. Hey, Sarah.
Yeah. I was curious because it seemed like it would work, and I was just curious if there was a reason it wouldn't.
Yeah, as long as you can do it through the mic. Now, I'm curious how our custom recognition works because we actually train it with different voices, and I'm curious if it would be accurate enough with the speech to text voice, because it's funny. There are very, very weird edge case scenarios we've run into where, if you've got somebody with like a combination of a hybrid accent. It can be difficult to pick them up because there's not enough training data on them. But that's actually not too difficult to solve on our end. We can just, when we find someone, it's like, oh, we found like the rabbit, the Cheshire rabbit that can't, the Cheshire cat that can't be picked up by it. So we'll go and we'll grab that person and be like, here, speak these things in the microphone so we can train them. And like that is, and in all of our testing that we've done, we have found one person. We found one person that does it. And that person, if I remember right, they were Iranian, but they had a Brooklyn accent, but it was like kind of broken. So if you can imagine like such a weird thing is, and that's what the edge case needs to be. It needs to be like, hey, I grew up in one country, but I'm speaking with kind of and I'm trying to speak with an American accent. And so like you get this weird hybrid of the two. I mean, I had a hard time understanding him personally as well. So, I mean, it's funny how, like, for example, we've actually tested with different accents. So, like, say, for example, my family, who's from Mexico, I put my uncle in the thing. English is not his first language, and he said things in a way that like didn't make sense, and yet speech to text still got him for the most part correct, and the intent system knew, oh, he's talking about this. It's just like when someone speaks to you when you're a native English speaker and they speak in broken English to you, you still understand their intent, you still understand what they meant, and can continue the conversation. And the crazy thing is that the AI systems are now getting to the point where they can do those things. They can do things the way that humans do. And that's why I'm really bullish on the future of what we're going to be able to do with AI, because once someone really smart puts together the tools and makes it easy for someone else to do it, like, there's just going to be a lot of amazing software and stuff that's going to come out. Like, it's not going to be just me. Like, someone's going to figure out something and we're going to be like, oh, how did we live without this? It's going to be like the smartphone all over again, where someone's going to create a new class of software that we've never seen before. And it's just going to be something that we cannot imagine life without. Maybe it's VR chat.
I was going to say, have you seen the video with the Google talking to the Alexa, where they just go back and forth? There's a YouTube video of that.
I actually have a couple things in my videos that that's hilarious, and some other stuff.
But thanks for the explanation.
Yeah, those things are going to happen, right? Like AI talking to AIs. I mean, we already talk to AIs, right? There's no reason why an AI wouldn't be able to talk to an AI here soon. I think that there's a level of understanding that will emerge as the AIs work. So like when you're programming an AI, the most important thing is to give it as much data as possible. And so when we're talking about entering in the statements, our statements are not the only data that's in that AI. Because it's a cloud service, there are other statements and other dictionaries that they've also trained it with as well. I would imagine that thing is like scouring the web as well, trying to pick up written language. Yeah. So there's a lot of things that get combined with that. So, for example, say that we write in the statement, we have an intent, and it's to shoot the lasers, right? And so we say we'll put in fire the lasers, shoot the lasers, fire the weapons, shoot the enemy, shoot him down, fire, all these things, and we'll put all those statements in there. And one guy from California will come in and be like, make the lasers go pew pew. And like sometimes that will work, because it's like there's enough of it in there that it knows, okay, I have a good idea that this is what they meant. But at the other token too, there's language evolves, right? And let's just make up a word out of nowhere. Let's just say that, we put in the word swag, and it was like, okay, yeah, it's like, yeah, swag, let's do it. Right? Like you got that. You understand what they mean. But now the kids, the Gen Zs or the double A's or whatever they call them, they're out of letters now. They start saying, I don't know, like swoogle. I don't know. Sounds like an orc in Warcraft. They're saying swoogle. Right? That gets cool again. And so like that's a word that the AI is not going to be able to pick up on. And so like that's something you have to train it with. But like as language evolves, at some point the AIs are going to be able to train without that data. But for a game like ours, I don't think that's going to be as useful. But for a piece of software that's interpreting or being like your personal assistant, like that stuff's going to be absolutely critical.
Like our Alexas, Google Homes, or Siris in our phone. That stuff's getting popular the last few years. I'm actually designing one of those devices, a home unit myself.
Yeah, we've had Alexa since it came out, and we even picked up a second one, the Dot, for the kitchen and living room. We love it. We use it every single day, multiple times a day.
Yeah, so that's the funny thing too, is people are getting used to this stuff. Like the computer understands me, and so I think it's going to be easier for us to sell this software as time goes on. But man, when we first announced it earlier this year, before like Alexa was picking up and Google Home and all that stuff, it's just like, how are you going to do this? Computers don't understand people. It's impossible. And it's like, dude, Google's been understanding you for like the last couple of years.
Right. Yeah.
People are starting to get it.
Google. And then, so I like, it's annoying when we're out, like I was staying at a hotel and we want to ask Alexa something and she's not there.
No, that's what your phone's for, bro.
yeah, that's right. No, we have to
Alexa
like actually
doesn't have a phone app yet.
Right. Well, so we have to like go. Well, I mean, it's like the ultimate in laziness when I can't just like talk out into the air and something can, you know, I actually have to pull the phone out of my pocket and hit the button to make it.
Feed me pizza. Right? Like, yeah.
Yeah. So how many people have you run through your software so far? Because like I remember when you run K-Dog and I through it, you were going through and taking meticulous notes on the things that we're saying and you know, inputting that to make your system better. Like how many people have you run through that? And has there been anything like really funny or interesting that like it stuck out to you that you remember like people saying?
The lasers pew pew is pretty good. There was another one where he said it was like wingmen fuck him up because he was like trying to tell him to attack. Sure. And she got all pissed off because she thought that, you know, they're telling her to fuck off. You know, women fuck off, right? Like, so like there are certain things that require more training because they're very close to each other, like semantically they're really close.
Yep.
But things that are really far apart don't require as much training. So, I mean, that's why we do play tests. In terms of the amount of people that we play tested with, I can't even remember how many. I've lost count. You know, we've done with a lot of people in the VR community. We haven't really gone wide with, you know, consumers yet. There's a good reason for that. We're going to have a lot of cool stuff to show here when we get, you know, essentially once we get the funding to come through and once we start building out more of the actual game. I mean, what you saw Vertical Slice was great, but you know, we learned a lot of things from that Vertical Slice. And so now we're building essentially like our next generation, our next level of that system. And so like some of the problems that we had, for example, if you talked while someone else was talking, you know, like the line would play, we're going to have systems where they're going to be able to react to you on that. That's a first. I haven't told anybody yet. Don't go to GameFAQs and tell them that.
It's all on Twitch.
It's all on Twitch. No! So, you know, we're refining the system. We're making it better because even though the people we showed it to were like, hey, this is good enough, you should release it. For us, we want to make sure that out the gate that we do this right. And that any minor complaint that we got from some people, that we attempt to, as best as we can, address those features. And so,
Sarah gives you
know, we've been refactoring our system. Yeah, thank you. I mean, it's a product that we're asking your money for, and it should be something that when you get it, that you love it. I mean, I was in the AAA game business, and you know, we sold all kinds of weird stuff to people that, like, you know, they got it and they're like, "What is this?" And like, I feel like just AAA in general, not just where I work, but AAA in general, is just like, "Haha, we have your money. Thumbs up for us. We got your money." But like, you know, there were so many brands that were ruined that way. So many games were like, what happened to that game? It used to be awesome. It's like, dude, you're only as good as your last game. And so when we're trying to start a new IP, Starship Commander, I mean, that's all game marketing speak. When you're trying to make a brand new game that no one's ever played before, you got to make sure that it's worth someone's money, that it's worth their time. I mean, I just said this on RevVR's podcast, I think it was like 2 weeks ago. The problem is not, hey, come play my game, it's cool in VR. It's, hey, don't do that thing that you were going to do for the next couple of hours and instead spend money on my game and play it. So like, that's a huge ask to make to anybody. And so you got to make sure that you've got the best thing you possibly can. Yeah. Yep. That's why you're like, hey, the
and I think people have high
down.
standards, you know, and even for VR, right? People expect it to be further along than it is. You know,
and it's hard. It's hard when the budgets are as low as we are, because the fundamentals for VR software is just, hey, look, like if you're really awesome, you can do like maybe 100 to 200K sales. And so when you think of like, okay, most of this software is only selling for 20 to 30 bucks, and then you're paying the 5% Unreal and you're paying the 30% store fee and all this other stuff. It's like, you know, you got to make sure that at the end of the day that you can still keep making these things. So I know that you know, gamers are like, we want the best for our money. We want to have something that we can play for as many hours. I get it. I'm there too. I want to make sure that everything that I buy is the best, that it's the best use of my time, that I'll be able to get as much fun as I can out of it. And so that's why we're being real. Honestly, that's reason why we're being secretive about this. Also, it's a narrative game, and if you're like, surprise, here's the whole story, like that's part of the fun of a narrative game is exploring it and being able to find out what it is. And we're still like on the fence, like, hey, do we tell people that this is the canon story, or do we let them figure that out? Like these are things that we're still kind of figuring out, even though like we know what we're going to tell in the story, and we know like we have a world Bible. That's what it's called. Like, here's how the world is, and here's the truth. And yet, you'll talk to somebody and they'll give you their version of the truth, or the truth from their perspective. And so like you're going to have these conflicting perspectives between people. And part of the game is going to be you determining, all right, who's telling me the truth? Or even more subtly, it's like, which version of the truth do I want to believe? And so you can have those arguments with your friends when you get in those water cooler moments. It's like, no, I believe that this happened. I believe that that happened. I think when we talk about the player experience, we talk about the game experience. It doesn't start when you turn on the game, and it doesn't end when you turn it off. The player experience is everything leading up to it. So like the marketing and what we say about it, and what details reveals, and even more importantly, what details we don't reveal. And then at the end of the game, when you go and you talk to your friends about it, that player experience still continues on. And so, crafting that type of an experience that beyond just the start and the end of the executable takes time, takes effort, it takes money. And, we've got experience doing this. A lot of our guys do come from AAA games, but we also have people from theater. We have people, with mechanical engineering backgrounds. And having those experiences and having all those people there to help us build this experience just makes it that much more well-rounded, right? We're not, I know we're AAA game dev, but there's also other people there that are not there, and they are just as important for making VR software. So if anybody in here is like, hey, I don't want to make VR software because I'm not a programmer, I'm not an artist, or I'm not hardcore into C+, like, don't worry. The skill sets, you can build them, and you are not that much further behind than the guys that started 2 years ago. Just like get in there and do it now, because there's something that one of you out here in this audience right now probably are thinking like, oh, that's obvious. It should be done. It's not obvious to people. We thought it was obvious that you could talk to people in a story with natural language, and everybody looks at us like, how did you figure this out? It's like, isn't it obvious? You put a person in front of you, you can talk to them. We're doing it right now. Why wouldn't you be able to do that with an AI or a computer?
Thought it was impossible, but apparently not.
Yeah.
Pretty ambitious. This is the kind of stuff we want. VR is groundbreaking, but now we're going to be able to talk to our AIs. This is going
you gotta have two groundbreaking things, right? Two groundbreaking things.
Sure.
And then you got something awesome. Because everybody now is like, oh, I'm in VR. Okay, cool. What else can I do? The really interesting thing, though, is when people play Starship Commander as their first experience, they start talking to other NPCs in video games. They're like, oh, no, you can't do that there. And they're like, well, why not? And somebody said this to me. These are not my words, but somebody who played our experience said, oh, I get it. Talking to characters is going to be like the thumbstick, the analog thumbstick on the controller. It's like once you put it there, you can't take it back. You can't get rid of it. Like it has to be there. And I was just like, damn, can we put that on the back of the box?
That's totally interesting. I can't play games on like 2D screens a lot of the time now. It's VR's, how can I go back from being inside the game?
VR is awesome. I love VR.
Tiny little box. Somebody was starting to ask a question over here, I think. Is that you, Sonic?
Yeah, sure. What's up?
How far along are you in development?
So we're entering production right now. So in the video game world, you have pre-production, and then like post/polish. So generally, when you see a game and they say it's pre-alpha, you're generally just starting to enter production, meaning that like you have a pretty good idea of what the game is going to look like. You have a pretty good idea of the story. You have the big list of work you're going to do. And then once you get to post-product, or once you get to post or polish time is what some people call it, they'll say like, hey, open beta. So it's content complete, meaning that everything in the game should be there. It's playable. It's all there. And now they're just fixing bugs, until they do the final release. So that way that when people hammer on it, like, okay, I get it. Early access changes the definition of those things, so it's kind of nebulous. I know it's just like, hey, where are you on the game? It's like, we're working on it. God forbid, I hope that this doesn't happen, but like, what if we have to restart development on another engine or something, right? Like, then we can be like, sorry guys, we have to delay a little bit, but like, I don't see us doing that. I really want to get this out sooner than later, because I really want to be able to share with people, hey, here's what we've done with natural language processing. Look at how it changes the game. And I don't mean like the game in terms of like video games, but like the game in terms of like all of VR. It's like, you need natural language processing when it comes to, just because like your hands can only do so much.
Yeah. You don't want to poison the well, so you should take, my opinion, the time you.
We've taken a lot of time. Now we're ready to go into production to produce something awesome and release it to guys out there.
Cool.
Any thoughts of putting out a demo anytime soon?
In terms of demos, it's going to be really hard to do a demo for a story-based game. I could give you a scene, and you could play for like, I don't know, anywhere between like 5 to 15 minutes on it. But would that really be indicative of the story? I mean, we look at movies and we say, hey, here's a trailer, and it's more indicative of the story, right? Like, we don't have to write a new scene. We can push a bunch of scenes together, and you get an idea of the title. I don't know. This is something that we have to explore. It just depends on how much time we have. Now, just keep this in mind, because I've talked to Rev Kyle, but if I spend time doing a demo, that's maybe like a scene or two that I could have put extra into the game. And so those are decisions that we have to make. Do we delay the timeline? Do we put more time into a demo? How do we best show off the game so that people understand the concept? Because it's weird even calling it. To me, I personally believe it's weird even calling it a game.
Yeah.
But it's also weird calling it a movie, and it's weird calling it like a VR cinema thing. Like it's just this new thing.
Experience.
Yeah, we're just going to put it out there and just let people figure out what it is and tell us what they like and what they don't like about it.
Cool. Have any more questions?
Yeah, I have a question.
Didn't you say earlier it was kind of an interactive story or a choose your own adventure? So that's how you described it, right?
Correct.
Choose your own adventure in VR. Yeah, so that's it. That's all you need.
Yeah, but you know what? You say that to these newer kids that never read books, and all of a sudden
never read books.
They never read the Choose Your Own Adventure books.
Sure.
Oh, I remember those. Yeah. I still got like.
I love those.
Yeah. So, as I understand it, you're doing all the voices are pre-recorded from the NPCs. Have you considered, or did you consider, like speech synthesis and having a wider possibility of replies?
Yes, so speech synthesis we actually looked at very early on. It wasn't going to be able to deliver a compelling experience. So like one of the things I think that's really important to characters is their inflection in their voice, their ability to point at you and say, you, do that now. And when they say it with power, or there's an emotional moment where, the wingman's spilling her guts about the past, about, the things that she's seen, while working for peace, which is, the military there. Those moments fall flat because you're used to seeing, with speech to text, because you're used to seeing the world's best actors deliver monologues and speeches like that. You watch Hollywood movies and you watch, network television. These guys are the best. These men and women are the best actors and actresses in the world. And so it's really easy for us to look at an indie movie and be like, acting's bad. It ruins the experience. It takes you out of the story. And so that was one of the reasons why we initially just said, like, nope, we're not going to do speech to text. We're going to record actual actors and actresses speaking their lines. Same thing with the visuals, too. We actually used to just put up a portrait, and we found that the audience was not acting to it. They wouldn't buy it. They just like, when it was too visual novel-y, And so like they wanted to just sit back and just watch it instead of interact. when that person's there, looking you in the eye and pointing at you and doing those things, that's when all the magic happens.
Okay, cool.
Right on. Any more questions?
It's just the time. Yeah, raise your hand.
Starship Commander. You can do that. And you can talk out loud to us because we're real, so you've got that now here at Social VR.
Hate to go technical on it, but are you going to have full control over the spaceship? Like, I understand, like you're going to have a fight scene in there because you've got a gun with ships. Are you going to be able to say, like, go at this heading, this fast? Or is it just going to be, like, hey, there's an enemy, shoot it?
So one of the things that you're going to find that's really interesting about input methods is that there are certain input methods that are really good for things. So let's talk about things that we're both very familiar with. The mouse and keyboard. The keyboard is really good for controlling things, and the mouse is really good for pointing on the screen with really fine control. The keyboard is not really good for natural language or for speaking. We've just gotten accustomed to it because it's like something that we're really good at doing. We're not expecting that people are going to become accustomed to flying the ship with their voice. Like, it's always going to be better to manually fly the ship with a joystick. Like, that's just what it is. So the way that we've actually explained it is that the ship is more automated in the game. And because of that, you're actually able to focus more on the character interactions than you were. We had some prototypes. We actually tried, like, hey, what happens if you fly the ship around manually and talk? And believe it or not, flying a ship in VR is just like, like you just can't talk. Because there's just so much of your brain power that needs to be used from doing it. And I flew those flight sims all the time. Like, I grew up on Microsoft Flight Simulator, in DOS. Like, I flew all kinds of stuff. I love flying. But man, as soon as it came to like flying and talking, you get that So it's really difficult to have a meaningful conversation while you're doing it. It's just like when you're driving in heavy traffic, you're driving in Chicago traffic or LA traffic. It's like, I don't want to talk. I'm going to focus on this so I don't hit anybody. And when you got your game face on, it's just like, okay, we have to pick something that we're going to be good at. And there's also the fact that I personally didn't want to be compared to all those space shooter games because I'm not experienced at making a space shooter game. And there are several very competent space shooter games that you can fly manually. And then you also run into the fact of sickness, right? When you can control it. So all those things set aside, we just decided to focus on the story instead. There's going to be action scenes. I think you're going to be rather surprised at how we put together the traditional gameplay sections, which is how we're calling it, traditional gameplay, because the natural language part adds a layer of gameplay to it that you probably weren't expecting. Being able to negotiate with people is a game, and there are social games out there that are negotiation games that are really popular, like Mafia. So there's actually a lot of gameplay associated with just the talking. So I wouldn't be afraid of like, hey, you can't fly the ship around. One, there's really awesome games that are really good at flying the ship around, and two, I think you're going to like with what we've done. You just got to give us some time where we can show you something, like show you an example of the gameplay and stuff.
Yeah, I was just asking, like, how deep you actually went into, ship controls. If it was more of a, a kind of an AI-based where you say, follow this guy and shoot him, or if it was more of a, flight heading 037, bearing, 773 at flight speed 225, and then the ship does that.
Well, Picard, you're just going to have to wait. So we'll show you what we've got going on later.
And
225. People do get into it, though. People do get into it. They start saying this stuff. So, I mean, we have to account for it.
Captain's log, stardate.
Have you put any Star Trek lingo in there? Like, so if people say, certain things that aren't in like regular or like from Star Wars or other series.
I will tell you this:
Easter eggs.
We determine the intent of what you're saying, and so if your intent is to fly the ship or to shoot the lasers, or to do any sort of thing, that you would do in a science fiction universe, if the audience decides that they want to say those things and the AI just knows that, hey, they mean this, well, guess what's going to happen?
Make it so.
It is going to happen.
You said it. Let's see. Moik over there's got a hand up right there. He's got a question.
Hey, I got a good one for you. It's a good segue too. Given the announcement, it was either today or yesterday that Ubisoft is flipping the switch on Watson on Star Trek Bridge Crew. I realize your product is quite different from what they're doing, being more of a space shooter, and you're a virtual novella, so to speak. What do you think about their implementation of Watson for natural voice communication to the AIs on Bridge Crew?
So I haven't been able to experience it yet. I still need to get a group of people to play Bridge Crew with, because we're gonna like stream that at some point. Because we actually stream every Friday.
Just ask.
Yeah, we play it. The guys on my podcast, we play it.
Yeah, I gotta get together a group of people. So meet me after the show, and we'll talk something out. But I think with Star Trek, one of the things that's interesting about Star Trek is it was a product of its time. It was written in the 60s, right? And the future in the 60s was, hey, racism will be gone. Hey, money will be gone. And now we'll just focus on exploration, exploring space, like the space race, all these things that were relevant at the time. And, you know, that story follows them around, for better or for worse. That's Star Trek. I think when you play our game and you realize that our story is more reflective of the current themes that we have with politics and with our vision of what the future is going to be, I think you're going to find that the themes that we tell in our game are completely different. So yeah, they're adding some level of voice command to it, but they're not talking to characters and having a story. We're going to be exploring themes in a science fiction universe, which is what makes science fiction awesome. Yeah, hearts. Yeah, there we go. Right. Yeah. That are going to be more modern and relevant to what we're doing. And I mean, I love Star Trek. I'll still watch it, but at the end of the day, we need to be something else. Otherwise, people will just look at us and be like, "You're a Star Trek ripoff," you know? Absolutely interesting. Great question.
Yeah, having played both and kind of seeing the things that Star Trek Bridge Crew, I'm assuming will use. I think it'll be the types of interactions with voice for Star Trek Bridge Crew will probably be more akin to what people use in Elite Dangerous, where it's more technical based, where you tell the ship to, you know, target, you know, you can set that, you'll be able to set the heading to like 220 or whatever, whereas with Starship Commander, it's less technical and more like story and character interaction based.
Yeah. So yeah, we really focus on making sure that the characters. Games. Yeah, we definitely focus on like getting to know those characters and learning about who they are, and then making crucial decisions.
I think my question was more aligned with the parallel development. Ubisoft choosing to go with a voice command system using natural speech, leveraging Watson, and you using the product you've chose to go with, using a very similar natural speech. Let's just talk to the character instead of having to give very specific barked out military-like commands so it understands what I'm talking about. Leveraging two basically voice APIs. It's just interesting that they both happened at similar times.
Well, we've actually been working on ours for about 2 years. I don't know how long they've been working on Bridge Commander. I'm unfamiliar with what's going on over there, but the good news is you said, hey, you're barking out military commands. That is a possibility. People do that in our game, so we allow them to do that. You know, some people say more natural things. We also allow that too. I think part of the Star Trek experience is just like being those characters.
Language with like our AIs and the Alexas and stuff. So it's sort of, and there are APIs for these things. So it seems natural that these are going to start emerging. But
yeah,
your take is a lot more different than issuing commands, and it'll hopefully be varied understanding in many ways. But it's still going to be Star Trek driven. You're probably going to be.
One of the things interesting that it's all popped up in the
Same
last
time.
year. Like you said earlier, I'm talking to my car now. I talk to the shop here while I'm developing. You know, now I'm talking to people in games. So it's amazing how quick this has popped
Yeah,
up.
it's going to catch on really fast, and that's why we've been working on this development for last 2 years. I think a really good story is during the development of Mario 64, they didn't know how powerful the Nintendo 64 was going to be. They just knew that Mario was going to be in 3D because they were working on a 3D system. And so the game designers spent a full 12 months doing nothing but letting Mario move inside of a cube, a box. They're like, well, he needs to run. Oh, well, he needs to be able to slide. Oh, he needs to be able to duck. Oh, he needs to be able to do backflips. Oh, he needs to be able to jump off walls. He needs to be able to slide down walls. He needs to be able to crawl and do all these things. So, there's something to be said about being able to take the time to properly develop and figure out what are the things that you can do when you're, making a jump to essentially a new medium. And Mario 64 is still like one of the greatest games of all time because they spent a year doing nothing, making sure that Mario's movement works. And that is like the core gameplay of Mario 64 is Mario moving around different maps. And then they started making the maps once they determined, oh, we can have the maps this big. Oh, we have this many polygons we can have on screen. They had already solved the movement problem for Mario. Now it was just about building fun, great maps. And so for us, we spent essentially 2 years figuring out how do you make fun gameplay with speaking? How do you, tell a story with these virtual characters? How do you do all these things? And so Star Trek Bridge Crew is going to be is awesome because it's a social multiplayer game. They probably spent a really good amount of time trying to make that work. But at the end of the day, that's going to be two different products. I know it's easy to look at me like, oh, space, sci-fi, you fly around a ship and you bark commands. Like, on the surface, it's going to feel like it's the same thing. But once you play them, you're going to know. It's just like...
I've played both, and I can definitely say they're very different.
Yeah. It's just like, like Dragon Quest and Final Fantasy. Like, you're like, oh, they're the same game because it's that, but it's not, right? Like you go and you play and you start to realize, okay, there's intricacies and different things, even though they're made by the same company, now. It's
been a great talk. I think that's good. You have any last questions, Bob?
I've went through all the ones that I come up with.
Yeah. There's been so much to think about here, and it's such an ambitious project.
Expect this to happen for us to buy.
Oh, for you to buy. I was like, what? For what to happen? This right here? This happening? This is happening right now. We're talking. Expect to buy it. We haven't announced a ship date yet. When we do, we will let you guys know. If you want to know more about the game, you should follow us on Twitter. We are at @human_interact. Is this a good time right now?
Perfect time.
Perfect. Yeah. You should follow us at @human_interact. All game news related to Starship Commander or our streams are there, so you'll get information on that. In terms of finding out more about the game, you can go to our website, human-interact.com. It's a good place to see the current information that's available for the game right now, though I've told you a lot about what's on there. As we announce dates, as we announce, whatever platforms we may be coming out for, as we, come up with trailers and give more information about the game, it's all going to be there. And you can follow me on Twitter too. But if you care about the game, it's cool. Just follow the game.
And you got a newsletter in case some people don't do Twitter. There are still
yeah. There's an email site that you can sign up for too there, so you can. We're not going to spam you. We're just only going to tell you when something cool about the game is coming out. We haven't sent one yet, so.
Right on. And then, Bob, what do you got going on with the Left-Handed VR podcast?
We've been playing Star Trek Bridge Crew for the last few weeks. We haven't done any recording, but we've been playing Star Trek Bridge Crew. So eventually, we'll record an episode where we'll talk all about that. So probably coming up soon. So you can follow us at LHVR Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, and we're on all the major podcasting platforms.
Awesome.
Star Trek became a lot of the conversation. We even have somebody dressed as a Star Trek officer right over there, Johnny Whoop.
What's up?
In VR chat that everything and anything's possible.
So,
we gotta make some Sergeant Pearson ones for VR chat.
And of course, GuntersUniverse.com. Follow me at Gunters Universe, all that jazz. It's been really great having you on the show, man.
Yeah, thank you so much, Gunter. It's been great being here.
I think everybody's enjoyed this. So take care, everybody, and we will see you next week. And for you guys that are here, I have an after show for you, so stick around for that as well. Wow, man, that's awesome.
Yeah, I know. I feel like my hands kept disappearing here, though. I don't know. I guess I'm like under the camera.
If you stop using them, if they're just stationary, that's what
Thank you.